When you hear the word war, you probably imagine armies clashing over borders, battles raging for power or ideology, but in 17th century Europe, one of the most bizarre fronts was, wait for it, facial hair. Yes, whiskers, mustaches, beards. Welcome to the War of the Whiskers, a time when what you wore on your face was more than just a fashion choice. It was a political statement that could get you exiled, insulted, or even into a duel. Let's rewind to the early 1600s. Europe was a continent simmering with tension. Nations jostled for power, religion divided kingdoms, and courts were rife with intrigue. But alongside all this, there was another kind of tension, over beards. Why? Because facial hair was about more than vanity. Beards were, and still are, powerful cultural symbols. In many societies, they represent wisdom, masculinity, religious devotion, or social status. In 17th century Europe, beards, or their absence, became shorthand for political allegiance. In France, King Louis XIII and his top advisor were pushing hard for centralization and modernization of the monarchy. One way they showed that? By promoting the clean-shaven look. Now, why? Some historians argue it symbolized discipline and control, a fresh-faced new France, sleek and powerful. Others say the king's personal advisor personally just hated beards. Fair enough. What's clear is that at the French court, beards began to look outdated. Wearing one wasn't just old-fashioned. It could make you suspect. There were even unofficial bans against sporting beards in some circles, especially among courtiers who wanted to stay in the king's good graces. Contrast that with Spain, where the beard was king. Spanish nobles, military leaders, and even common men proudly wore large, elaborate mustaches and full beards. For them, facial hair was a badge of honor, Catholic identity, and a link to the glorious Spanish Golden Age. It was tradition, pride, and resistance to the French-style modernity. So what happens when you mix these two camps? French clean-shaven progressives versus Spanish bearded traditionalists? You get what some historians call the War of the Whiskers. No, it wasn't an official war with generals and tanks. Tanks weren't a thing yet. But it was a cultural war, fought in salons, courts, and yes, sometimes with swords. Being clean-shaven or bearded was a declaration. It told people who you supported politically, who your allies were, and who your enemies were. People took this very seriously. Dueling was already a popular way to defend honor in Europe, and insults about someone's beard, or lack thereof, could be the spark. One noble might mock another's cowardly chin for shaving, prompting a duel at dawn. It sounds so absurd now, but then, your facial hair was kinda your brand. Lose your beard, lose your honor. Religion also played a part. In Catholic Spain, beards were associated with piety and the Counter-Reformation's conservative values. In France, the move towards clean shaving aligned with efforts to reform the church and state, a visual signal of new order. Facial hair became a proxy battleground for deeper religious and political conflicts. Remember, this all happened amid massive upheaval. The 30 Years' War was raging, Europe's map was being redrawn, and monarchy power dynamics shifted constantly. So the War of the Whiskers was like a microcosm of these bigger tensions, played out on faces rather than battlefields. It was about identity, power, and where you stood in a rapidly changing world. Eventually, as fashions and politics evolved, the intense fuss over facial hair faded. The clean-shaven look became dominant in many parts of Europe, especially France, but the legacy remained. facial hair kept its symbolic weight, showing heritage, tradition, or even political views. Today, whether you sport a beard or shave clean, you're still participating in a centuries-old cultural dialogue. So next time you decide to shave or grow a mustache, think about the stakes. For some 17th century noble, that choice might have meant the difference between life and death. Politics, war, all on your face. Thanks for watching Pandemythium, where history's weirdest battles get the spotlight. If you enjoyed this dive into facial hair politics, hit subscribe, and let me know which strange chapter of history you want to explore next. Because sometimes, the smallest things pack the biggest punch.